sing, children of the world. Come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world. Islam will unite us all. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wallahu akbar. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wallahu akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear viewers, to this new episode on Huda entitled Our Schools, What is Missing? Now, in this episode, we're going to be discussing various aspects of education. Education is something that we all have to go through in this modern global world of ours, no matter whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim or whatever your creed or colour and whatever your status or place in the world. Most people, they're going to go through the modern education system. However, there's always something that education is a little bit deficient in, and there's many aspects that perhaps we would benefit from, but we also have some deficiencies. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing what those deficiencies might be and what those benefits might be also. Now, with me in the studio today is Dr. Mamdouh Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you today, Doctor?
Fine, wonderful, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, welcome. Lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Now, Doctor, you used to work for Johns Hopkins University in America.
Yes.
And you also are a co-founder of around 5 or more schools across the globe. And you've also authored a number of different books regarding Islam and education. It's quite a CV you have, mashallah. Now, before we discuss the actual schools and the modern school system and the deficiencies or benefits within it, I'd like to just start off by talking a little bit about the state of the human. And now, every human being has what we would call the natural state, or has been born in the natural state. And this is what you're saying is very important in education. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you mean by the natural state of the human? Yeah.
Right. Before I do that, first of all, I thank you for hosting me in Al-Huda, and I hope, inshallah, it will be a very beneficial number or series of episodes for the viewers everywhere on the globe. The topic of Al-Fitra, or the natural or the original nature of the human being, or the plate when we were born with, the pre-formatted nature that we were born with. I think here it's good to mention the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is an amazing hadith. I'm quite sure lots of authors can write books about this hadith, this saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The hadith is very short, and it talks about the human nature in general, the original nature that everyone was born with. I'll cut it into 2 chunks. The first one is كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. Every newborn baby is born on fitra. Fitra is defined as the original nature of the human being. The nature, the format that makes him or her submit to God easily. The pure plate that we were born with, the unaffected format that had never been affected by the environment.
Could we say innocence even?
Absolutely, it's part of it is innocence. It's the nature that Allah wants us to continue on. So all of them were born equal, which is another important theory here, because it says that we Muslims do believe that we were not born carrying the sins of someone else. We were born pure without innocence, because it is not our responsibility that someone else, my father or my mother or my grandfather, made a mistake. It's not my responsibility. In Islam, I am responsible for my own acts. So my nature, all of us were born with equal nature, a nature that would help every human being to be straight on the line, to continue being surrendering himself or herself to Almighty Allah.
So this is something, Doctor, that we particularly in Islam, we would want to preserve.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't want to change.
Absolutely, because what happens, we're born with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to be. But what happens to us in our lives, throughout all our lives, if something is added to it, if you add it on the same line, on the same format, if you add something that can be perceived in the same format, you will keep the format. If you add something that's against this format, you are going to reformat it again.
So perhaps that's worth just sort of summarizing there.
Yeah.
Is that it's this nature of the human is something that we've been created with, and it's something that we want to preserve.
Absolutely.
And that's perhaps the goal in the educational terms that we want to bear in mind when we're thinking about how do we bring our children up, how do we
Very good.
think about education.
The second part of the saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that فَأَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِّدَانِهِ أَوْ يُنَصِّرَانِهِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِهِ. But it is his parents, they are the ones who are going to change him from the original format, which means a Muslim, into another thing, whether to make him a Jew, or to make him a Christian, or to make him a Magan, or to make him a pagan, or to make him anything else.
Okay. And Doctor, I'd just like to, just on that very note,
Yes,
I'd like
please.
to just ask you, before we talk about the school itself, what role do you think parents have in taking care and looking after this natural state of the child?
It's quite obvious that the saying of the Prophet ﷺ began with the parents here. When the Prophet ﷺ said that فَأَبَوَاهُ, which means that, but it is his parents or her parents, the parents of the newborn child. So here, because he mentioned the parents before he mentioned school system or the media system or whatever type of effect that would affect the child, he began with the parents because, as we call it, this is the first contact. The child is born, the first one that he contacts is the mother by starting breastfed from her. So the child is, first contact is the parents. So the parents play a very important role in either maintaining this fitra and keeping this nature as the child was created with, or they may change it. When they start teaching the child, when the child sees the parents doing things at home, he or she perceives what the parents give him. For the child, the parents are considered everything around him. They are the strongest, the most powerful human beings around him. He sees no one except them in the beginning.
It's actually a miracle, really, isn't it?
Yes, such a miracle,
that is
So
the case.
he gets or she gets everything from their parents. So the parents are the ones who put their prints on their baby, because they are the one who select what type of teaching they teach him, what they say to him, what books they select for him to read, what things that he listens to, what games that he begins to play with, what things that he or she watches on the TV. So they become the first teachers for him. So they either make an impact and keep and maintain the fitrah of the child, and by doing so, that means that they keep him or her as a Muslim, as a one who surrenders himself or surrenders herself to his creator or her creator.
Okay, and so really what we're saying is there is a huge responsibility on the parents.
Absolutely.
And I think many parents today, they think that, I'll put him in school and, the school will bring him up and after that he will come out and have...
Yes.
So it's worth remembering that, in fact, the parents have huge responsibilities as well. Now, just before we move on, I wanted to discuss with you a little bit about how important is it? Because a lot of our viewers perhaps might be thinking, well, what is the relationship between the fitrah or the natural state of the human? Why should we bother at all why should we be concerned with it? And how is that related to education? So how important is it to look after this natural state, and what benefits will we get from it?
This is wonderful. As we said, that this natural fitrah or original nature This is the way Allah wants us to behave, to act in this life. So He brought us to this life equipped with this original nature. And if we deal with it, with the manuals, with the messages that came from God, and if we follow these manuals, if we follow one of them is, of course, the last message is the Quran. If we follow this manual with the original nature, we will maintain this original nature as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Almighty God wanted us to maintain it. And in this way, we would know, we would be able to deal with our parents, to deal with our peers, to deal with our neighbors, to deal with the neighboring countries, to deal with any situation that we can go through, because human being does not have the knowledge, adequate knowledge to deal with these things without guidance. So Almighty Allah created us pre-formatted to accept these manuals that He sent to us, the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, and the final one is the Quran, which overrides all the previous messages. So by doing this, we would know how to deal with everything around this, in this environment, and we become safe until we end our life. We go back to our Creator who created us.
And I think there's something just on a worldly point of view for the likes of non-Muslims and Muslims alike, that when this fitra, when this nature is preserved, then I think generally people feel happier in their life.
Absolutely.
And they're, like you say, they're able to deal with these different situations and not have perhaps damaging psychological disorders.
This is a wonderful thing. This is what we call rusting. It rusts or it changes. Yeah. You see, when you have a car, new car, and you have a good plan for maintenance, how to maintain it. You maintain it regularly on daily basis, some parts of it, some other parts weekly basis, some other parts maybe after a specific period, a month or 2 or 3 months or 3 years. And if you maintain it, you keep it in a good shape as it was, so it becomes easy for you to sell it. You see it as it was. I got it as if it is new. And that's why a lot of people, when they sell their cars, it's like new. That's exactly, we want to maintain our fitra. The concept of maintenance, this is an Islamic concept. And this is summed up in the hadith that I just mentioned in the beginning.
Lovely. Okay.
So our job is to maintain this fitra and to keep away any other thing that may rust it or change it or reformat it by the language of computers nowadays.
Of course, if it gets rusty, eventually it's going to break down.
Absolutely. You can see that you buy a rusty car or a new maintained car.
Okay. So we talked a lot about the background and perhaps the goal that we have in mind, particularly as Muslims and as people in general. But I want to now talk about the school. Now, today's modern school system is perhaps a relatively new phenomenon in the world, but it is based around certain principles. Now, a lot of these principles have crept in, seem to be, or a lot of these systems or ways of thinking have seemed to be, have crept into the system, and now we are faced, particularly religious people and people perhaps who have Muslims, for example, we face actually that there are systems which oppose our beliefs, and how
you
does
mean
this
change the fitrah? You mean
change
change
the nature of the human? For example, like Darwinism, for example.
Okay.
What can we do? How dangerous is this, and what can we do about it?
Okay. Before we get into specifics, I'd like you asked me the first question about the effect of the parents. As we mentioned, the parents were the first contact with the child, and after that the child would go to get more contacts. After the parents, it would be the brothers and sisters at home, if there are. If not, it would be the peer group, the people who are at his age, whether they are his neighbors or friends, and then after that it becomes a little bit wider than this. It becomes the small community that he in. And after that it becomes the school, whether it's KJ or the other schools after that, the elementary school, and then after until university, and becomes wider and wider and wider. It becomes the media, it becomes the schools, it becomes... So, but we usually focus on the school because it is well organized, and everything is in there is not by chance.
Okay, Doctor, I'm going to just stop you there.
Yes, please.
We're going to go to a break. Viewers, stay with us. This episode on Huda, we'll be back after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Let's talk.
So this is something that you have to point out to them in the Bible.
Something which is, I think, very rarely needed by the youth, which is staying firm on the truth.
This is just one of the greatest examples for me of how to control your anger.
Within the framework of being the cleanest religion, the cleanest jurisprudence, and in the meantime, the kindest religion to animals.
Watch Let's Talk with Khalil Amanet as he interviews guests and discusses a variety of topics, everything from youth issues to religious issues. Join us here on Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Huda. We've been discussing with our special guest, Dr. Mamdouh. We've been discussing education and what are the various problems that we are facing in this day and age with our children and the various problems they face in education. So, Doctor, before the break we were discussing, and I was mentioning that the various systems have crept into our schools, and this is having an effect on the fitrah. Can you just talk to us a little bit more about this?
When we talk about the school system, like the parental system or any other system or the environmental system, all these add some input to us. And this input that goes to us, because we, as human beings, we are the products of what we take. Whatever we take from outside affects us. For example, if we have a jug of water, right? If it is filled with water, when you want to pour from it, you will pour water. If it has juice, you will pour juice. If it has wine, it will pour wine. So it depends on what fills this. So what fills our nature, right, original nature, our fitrah, is the thing that's going to see from our behavior and our acts, our thoughts. So the more we keep our fitrah is pure, right, the more our acts will be pure and innocent and will be for the welfare of all humanity.
I think that's a lovely point to mention, perhaps for, Muslims, yes, they basically know this, but a lot of non-Muslims now are faced with it. They don't understand. They're putting their kids in a special school, and yet they're coming out with strange behaviors and strange patterns of behavior.
And then they ask, why do our kids behave like that?
Exactly, and they're confused. So this is a very important thing to realize for them, is that whatever you put inside, you're going to get out.
Yeah. And that's why the filtering system is very important. Before we get deeper into that, the parents can filter what the child is exposed to, what they give and offer the child. If they succeed to eliminate the negative side, so that they would keep the original nature as it was given to the child, this would be a wonderful job. And I think this should be one of the goals of every educational system in the world. And one of the goals of every family, every parent said, I want to maintain the original nature of the child. I don't want to distort him. I want to keep him as his creator wanted to keep him. It's my job to do this now. So coming back to the schools, we would find that the field trips, the subjects, the activities that the child is exposed to at school are the things that would either maintain the fitrah as it is, or would make some changes or reformatting the fitrah.
Okay, so it's worth you mentioning that, because a lot of times the students themselves or the parents themselves, they're not in control of what exactly they are taking at school or what they are studying. So what's the role of the teachers, and what can they do to try and increase this preservation, let's say, of human nature?
That's good. I think the first thing that is now they learned from this saying of the Prophet ﷺ, the concept of the original nature. So the job is to maintain this. Let me say that I'm teaching whatever subject I'm teaching. For example, one of the things that is taught in under reading, I think in many books across the globe, I found that the first few lessons, whether it's grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 10, whatever grade the student is in, this topic is about my country, my flag, my nation. You would find most of the books around the world would try to teach the child that he belongs to this country or to that specific nation. It's a very narrow concept, and it's against the original nature of a human being. From this original nature perspective, the child should be brought up as a global human being, a human being who can fit in Japan, or can fit in Zambia in Africa, or in Indonesia in Asia, or in America, and anywhere in the world, a global human being. Because if his fitrah is kept as original, he can fit in any of these places very easily. But if I prepare him to fit in a specific environment, when he or she changes the environment, he doesn't fit there. Because he had been taught when he was young to love his country more than any other country.
So it's interesting, a lot of people wouldn't even realize
that
this is actually affecting the child.
Yes. This is the effect of nationalism. When this concept of nationalism came and tried to affect every human being, okay, I love Germany more than I love any other European country. No, I love Egypt because I am Egyptian born. I love Tokyo because I am Japanese born. And everybody loves his own country, and the hidden message is, I don't like the other countries as much as I like my country.
Yes.
No. The Islamic concept is no. You should love all of them because all of them are human beings.
Exactly, yeah. So let's come back to teachers, and we mentioned teachers specifically.
Yes.
What exactly can teachers do to help this
Wonderful.
process? Yeah.
The teacher has in most cases, they have no control on the textbook or on the curriculum in some cases. If I'm exposed to a curriculum like this, I would explain exactly what I explained to the viewers right now. If I am a teacher, I would do the same job. I say that, look at these are good meanings, but there are some beautiful meanings than this. Is that to prepare the human being, to prepare the students to be a global, an international human being that, yes. So because this is part of the original nature. As the Prophet ﷺ taught us, all of you human beings are born from Adam. And Adam is created from the earth. So we know that all of us are created, we have one grandfather. When the teacher finds that in the book that he or she teaches something about the theory of Darwinism, the theory of evolution, that when they teach the child that his grandfather is an ape, it definitely has very negative impact on the original nature.
So the teacher can actually teach alternatives, even
Absolutely.
if it's in the curriculum.
Absolutely.
He can teach alternatives. Yes, that's here, but there is also...
But there is something, yeah.
Okay, that's
yeah.
great.
So if the teacher understands this, he would all the time try to maintain the original nature of his students. I think it is his job.
Okay,
yes.
lovely. Now, other things that may affect the fitrah, particularly with the rise of co-education, particularly in the West, how does that affect the fitrah of the children?
Yes. If you look back to history, you'll find that most schools, if not all of them in the world, they used to have separate education for men, for boys and separate education for girls. And this was going on in Europe and America and Japan, everywhere in the world, until I think the Second World War. Or for whatever reason, yes, they started having this co-education. And if you read into research, you will find, if not all, most of the research would say that, would prove to you that when students study in a school that have one single sex in it, yes, the results is be much better than in co-education.
Well, certainly I found that in my own country.
Oh, I'd love to hear.
The tables, we have results tables every year, and you always find that the very top, I mean the top 5 you could say at least, are always single-sex schools.
Yeah, this
So-
is in Britain.
This is in Britain now.
Wonderful. So you have a personal experience in
Yeah,
that?
that's right.
Okay.
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. That's all we've got time for on the show today. Thank you very much, viewers, for attending our episode. We very much look forward to seeing you again. I hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.
Oh, sing, children of the world, come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world, Islam will unite us all. Sing, children of the world, come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world, Islam will unite us all. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wallahu akbar. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wallahu